Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Greg Kimball, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Mark Pearson. We're honoured to acknowledge Mr. Vince DiPietro, Vice President and Chief Executive of Lockheed Martin. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors and schools and students on behalf of the following schools. From Queensland, Jubilee Primary School, Gavin, Camp Hill Infants and Primary School, Mossman State School, from South Australia, Endeavour College, Mawson Lakes. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's first World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him in Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Arthur Edward Wheatley. Arthur Edward Wheatley was born in 1894 in Glenree, New South Wales, to James and Isabella Bowes. Arthur's father abandoned his family soon after Arthur's birth and disappeared from their lives. Arthur was raised by his mother in Grafton. He attended Grafton Public School before becoming a farmer. Following the outbreak of the First World War, James enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force using his mother's maiden name at Grafton on the 12th of January 1915. After his initial training, he was allotted to reinforcements to the 9th Battalion. He embarked from Brisbane on the 16th of April aboard a transport ship Kyra, bound for Egypt. He spent a short time in Egypt before joining the 9th Battalion on Gallipoli on the 22nd of June. Wheatley spent the next few months in and out of the front line in the southern sector of Anzac. The poor food and water, combined with unsanitary conditions, took a toll on his health, and he began suffering from dysentery in August. His condition worsened, and in early November, he was evacuated to Malta. After some rest and recuperation, he returned to Egypt and rejoined the 9th Battalion in early March 1916. At the end of the month, the 9th Battalion sailed for France, and by the 19th of April, the battalion was in the reserve near and behind, about a mile behind enemy lines. Intermittent artillery fire was landing nearby. Early in the afternoon of the 20th of April, the battalion's Charlie Company billets were heavily shelled. One shell landed outside a canvas tent, wounding 4 soldiers. As men went to assist, another shell landed amongst them, killing several others and wounding more. Another shell hit a brick wall near the nearby billet. This caused a further 47 casualties. Charlie Company was decimated. 25 men were killed and 50 more were wounded. Among the wounded was Wheatley, who received a shrapnel wound to the chest. He was taken to the 7th Casualty Clearing Station, but his wound proved fatal, and he died on the 21st of April. He was laid to rest in a communal cemetery that day. He was 22 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among more than 60,000 other Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Arthur Edward Wheatley, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that concludes the last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening.